Hey guys, today we're working on my CBR1000. We're changing brake lines and brake pads for the track. Greetings from the future. Here's what you're going to need. 15mm socket, 5mm Allen, 12mm socket, 8mm socket, 10mm socket, 8mm wrench, 12mm wrench, 15mm wrench, and a prying tool. Also, a torque wrench is highly recommended. We're going to start by removing these two screws over here. Then we're going to move on to this over here, which holds the line in place. We're doing the left first, and then we'll do the right. There we go. So that should be on tight. Alright, let's move on to the other side. We're going to empty out the brake line. We're going to start on the longest line first. Just going to unscrew this. And as you can see, all the brake fluid's coming out. First caliper is empty. We're going to be moving on to the second one up here. I'm going to use a screwdriver to pry this open. These are garbage pads, so I don't really care about them. But if you're keeping yours, you might want to be a little more careful. So there's one more screw over here that's holding on the line. It's by the right fork. We're going to remove it. Over here on the brake master cylinder, we're going to get rid of the screw that's holding on the line. It wouldn't be a bad idea, just have some rags under, just in case brake fluid starts going everywhere. Alright, so carefully remove this. I'm holding onto the brake just to release pressure on the line. Be careful because this brake fluid will mess up your fairings. Here are the new lines. They're Galfer Racing for a CBR1000. We're going to have a link to them in the description in case you want to check them out. So here's how you're going to put the lines on the top. You're going to do master cylinder left on top, master cylinder right on the bottom. You know which one's which because the right is angled a lot lower and the left is a bit more straight. You're then going to put the banjo bolt inside with washers in between. We'll slide this in. We're going to tighten this down now. We presented this over here, but we still have it loose. We're going to make some adjustments down here, connect the caliper, and then we'll come back and tighten that. We're going to get the old lines off the caliper. It helps if you have a gun because these are on really tight. We're going to take off the brake pads now. I'm using a gun to remove this. If you don't have a gun, it might be a good idea to remove this when you were taking the bike apart. With those two screws removed, we're going to push forward and it should release the pads. There we go. They should just slide right out. We're installing these Versa brake pads. So this came out when we were installing. So we'll put it back in. It goes in like this with that side up. So just going to press that in. It should just clip in and put the pads in. So we're going to put the caliper back on the bike. It's a good idea to clean this up beforehand. Rest it right there. And we're going to put the screws back in just to hold it in place for now. So now we're going to connect the line to the caliper. Since they're stainless steel, they require a little bit of work over here. So we're going to slowly put this back in, make sure you're not stripping the bolt or anything like that. Again, this is the same thing, banjo bolt with washers in between everything. Alright, we're going to leave it loose, we'll torque it down to the correct spec a little bit later. We're going to tighten the caliper down a little more. Alright, we're just tightening it a bit. Again, we'll just torque everything down correctly later. Next, we're going to put the pins back in. We have to play around with the pads just to make sure they line up and they allow you to go through. There we go. I'm not going to tighten it all the way, just a bit. Perfect. Now, the kit didn't come with anything to hold this line, so I'll put this screw back in just so we don't lose it. Now we're going to repeat the same steps for the other side. This side is done now. I'm going to move on to putting this clip that holds the stainless steel line to the chassis. Here's that clip we were talking about earlier. You might have to compress it a little bit for it to go in, but just tighten it and that's it. We're done with everything. We're just going to start tightening everything down. We're going to start from the top and work our way down to the bottom. Doesn't really matter what order you do it, as long as everything's tight and there's no kinks or tough spots on the line. We're doing these two caliper bolts first. The spec on them is 33 foot-pounds. Perfect. We're going to do the other side right now. We couldn't find any torque specs for these, but we're going to tighten them down as well as possible. Don't over tighten it, but don't under tighten it either. We're going to check these out later to make sure they're not leaking. On to the other side. Final thing to do here is the carrier pins. We couldn't find any torque specs, so again, tighten them down with caution. And we'll just do the other side now. We're all done installing the brakes and brake lines. All that's left to do is just bleed the whole system. Okay guys, we're all done. We bled the system using a combination of the top bleeder and the bottom two caliper bleeders. Took a little bit of work, but we got it done. If you like the video, make sure to like it. If you want to see more, subscribe. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments. Thanks for watching. We're going to get the old line out of here.